My awful fiance said another woman's name at the altar on our wedding day. So I left him and I found someone better. I was in a relationship with my ex-fiancé Paul for 3 years before things took a turn for the worst on our wedding day. Looking back on it, I was very naive and in denial. Whenever he came home late, he always said he was at work even though I could smell the booze and cigarette ash on him. Whenever he went on his business trips, I could see his transactions and saw what looked like a romantic getaway for two. I knew he was cheating on me, but I had the I can fix him mentality all my life and I genuinely thought he would change when he proposed. But he only got worse. He never came home, never took me on dates, and stopped telling me he loved me. Whenever I made plans to take him on a date, he would always cancel at the last minute because he forgot he had to work. Then he would come home at 5 in the morning, intoxicated out of his mind. I put up with all of this because I actually thought that this was the best I was going to get. I genuinely thought I didn't deserve better. I had a rough childhood growing up where my parents neglected me because they preferred my cousin. I was constantly compared to her and I resented her all my life, even though she had done nothing wrong and I never even saw her. My 2 other boyfriends dumped me after a month of dating because there was always something awful about me that made them not want to stick around. But Paul stayed for 3 years. That was the longest relationship I have ever had and he was the sweetest boyfriend for a year. It was only after our 2nd year anniversary that he changed into this awful person. I was in huge denial because I thought that my Paul was still somewhere in there and I just had to ignore all of his red flags to see him again. It worked for some time, but the day of my wedding made me realize if I got married to Paul the first would be miserable all my life. I would be the wife that gets cheated on all the time and she just turns a blind eye to it. I didn't want to live like that, and as I walked down the aisle, I could see my life flash before my eyes, like when a person dies and they relive all their memories in fast motion. I knew then that if I said I do, I too would have died, metaphorically of course. And then came the moment my life changed forever. Paul called me by the wrong name, his girlfriend's name in fact, and I'm grateful that he did. I remember crying, but I still don't know if they were tears of joy or sadness because I had dedicated 3 years of my life to Paul, but I had a chance for a new start. I stormed out of the chapel and ran to my car. Everyone was too shocked to even follow me, but then I started getting calls and messages from everybody when I had already left. I decided that day that I would live my life differently. I had enough money saved up, because I never did anything fun for myself, to book a last-minute flight anywhere. If I was going to be a runaway bride, I was going to fully commit to it and do it right. So, I went on vacation and I had the time of my life. I met new people, experienced joys I never got to experience before, and I met someone, as cliché as that sounds. His name is Oliver and I met him by chance at a store. He flirted with me first and then asked me out when I flirted back. Our conversation was brief, but it was the most comfortable conversation I have ever had with a stranger. Even though I had just met him, I felt a closer connection to him than I ever had with Paul. And that was because Oliver actually liked me. We've been dating for 2 years and he's honestly treated me like a queen ever since we met. He surprises me with gifts all the time, both store-bought and homemade, writes me love poems, makes me breakfast in bed, and just treats me like I'm the only woman he'll ever love. Our spark has never died because he refuses to let it die. When we started dating, Oliver vouched that we wouldn't keep secrets from each other, but he also didn't push me to tell him about my baggage until I was ready. Well, that day came a year into dating and I told him about Paul. He actually thanked Paul for being such an idiot for letting me go because if he hadn't said the wrong name at the altar, Oliver never would have met me. His reaction was sweet, but he also comforted me through it all. I cried hard that night into his arms and he never let me go. I'm so glad I didn't get married that day because Oliver is the only man I want to spend the rest of my life with.